After getting wasted, I ran over to my boss's apartment, the guy I have a massive crush on, and started pounding on his door, sobbing and calling him a heartbreaker. I was really letting him have it when a cool voice cut through the air from behind me. "Nina, get over here. You've got the wrong door." My head was spinning, but that voice, as smooth and cool as polished stone, it sounded an awful lot like Larry's. I turned around. Standing in the opposite doorway was a man so devastatingly handsome he could steal your soul. His chiseled features had a stoic quality, and even in a casual set of sweats, he radiated a frosty vibe. He was so hot. Wait. I shook my head. That was Larry. I pointed to the door I'd been assaulting for the last 10 minutes and taunted him with surprising clarity. "Larry, you're so dumb. This is your apartment." He sighed, his brow furrowed as he rubbed his forehead. "Nina, come on." I shook my head, tears welling up in my eyes as I said stubbornly, "No, I'm not coming over. I'm here to break up with you." "Allow me to remind you," Larry said, a ghost of an exasperated smile on his lips as he leaned against his doorframe, "Miss Nina, we were never together." My eyes immediately reddened, my lip trembling. "I knew it, you've moved on. You heartbreaker." Larry was speechless. "Okay, stop making a scene. You'll wake the neighbors," he said, looking at me helplessly. He reached out to pull me inside. "Come in and sober up." My vision swam. It looked like two Larrys were coming to grab me. I tried to push him away in a fit of anger, but my hands met empty air. I lost my balance and pitched forward. The world, which had been violently tilting and spinning, was suddenly steadied by a hand on my waist. Larry's handsome face filled my vision. He scooped me up into his miz tucked into his embrace. The clean, cool scent of bamboo filled my nose, wrapping me in a sense of security. I nuzzled his neck, taking a deep, satisfying breath before my tears turned to a smile. I tilted my chin up smugly. "Since you're the one making a peace offering, I'll forgive you. You can go back to being my favorite person." The man let out a cold scoff. "How very generous of you, Miss Nina." I leaned against him and closed my eyes. A moment later, I felt him start to loosen his grip and I snapped awake. My eyes flew open and I poked his cheek, accusing him indignantly, "Are you trying to abandon me?" Larry's face tensed. He tried to turn his head, but my finger followed, and he couldn't dodge it. "Nina," he said, taking a deep breath. "I was just trying to put you on the couch." I wrapped my arms tightly around his neck, my refusal absolute. "No. I like it like this." Larry's voice sounded like it was coming through gritted teeth. "I can't hold you for long. You're going to fall." Without a word, I slid down and stood on the couch, which brought me to eye level with him. Larry snorted. Obedient for once. I gave him a pitying look and sighed dramatically. "What can I do? You're so weak. I have to save myself for when it really counts." Larry's face darkened completely. He asked me, one word at a time. "And when, exactly, is when it really counts?" I tilted my head and smiled, then reached out, wrapped my arms around his neck again, and pulled myself into his embrace, pecking him lightly on the lips. "You know, for moments like this. That's everything I remember. Sometimes, it's better to be dead than alive." And what the hell happened after I kissed him? You can't even let a girl die in peace. I hate it here. Finally, after a lengthy internal pep talk, I crept to the front door, making sure the coast was clear. I carefully turned the knob, ready to make my escape, when a well-muscled arm shot out in front of me. A lazy, morning voice drifted down from above. "Sober?" My scalp tingled. I didn't dare look at him. Yeah. I'll just, get out of your hair now. No need to see me out." But Larry didn't move his arm. He shifted his body, completely blocking the doorway. He seemed to have just woken up. His eyes, usually sharp as ice, were slightly hazy with sleep. He looked down at me, his eyes half-lidded as the morning sun slanted across his face, a few golden rays outlining his features and making him look like a god. I was so stunned I almost got lost in his gaze. A hint of a smile played on his lips as he leaned in and whispered, "Miss Nina, I think you forgot something." My brain blared like an alarm, snapping me out of the trance his beauty had induced. "Last night, I don't remember anything about last night," I said, my face flushing as I committed to playing dumb. "So, you're just going to kiss me and walk away?" Larry stared at me, his gaze intense. I looked at him, bewildered. "So, you want me to take responsibility?" The more I thought about it, the more excited I got. I took a tiny step forward, looking up at him with a hopeful expression. "Can I?" He let out a short laugh and a smirk curled his lips. Tina let out a laugh that sounded like a foghorn. "He really said that?" I shot her a look of utter betrayal. This was all her fault, and here she was, laughing at me. She'd gotten her heart broken last night and insisted I go out drinking with her. After a few too many, she'd turned the conversation to me. She said I'd been single since birth, and now that I finally had a crush, should be brave and go for it. I was already wasted, so with her egging me on, I was all fired up and just went for it in a grand, impulsive gesture. And, well, we all know how that turned out. "Look, you've kissed him, you've hugged him, the cat is totally out of the bag. Just go for it," Tina said, her eyes gleaming with gossip. "Besides, you two have known each other forever. You have a way bigger advantage than anyone else." I slumped deeper into the couch, frustrated. The first time I saw Larry was at the university debate team tryouts. He was the team captain, 2 years ahead of me. The lecture hall was packed, but the second I walked in, my eyes locked onto him at the judges' table. He sat among the crowd but had this detached, solitary air about him. His profile was pale, and his dark eyes held a few glimmers of light, like reflections on snow. I was instantly, completely smitten. Thankfully, I've always had a quick tongue, and I made the team. We ended up competing in countless tournaments together. I was the offense, he was the anchor. In every match, I'd go for the quick attack, and he would always have my back. We were a perfect team. So, naturally, when he started his own company, he asked me to join him. But I only realized I was in love with him a month ago. I'd heard that Larry's family, tired of his perpetual single status, had given him an ultimatum: bring a girl home by the end of the year, or else. I teased him about it, saying it was no wonder his family was getting antsy. He hadn't had a single woman in his life for years, of course they were worried. He'd been signing documents but suddenly looked up at me and countered seriously, "I have you. Aren't you a woman?" I froze, blinking, my heart starting to beat a little faster. He didn't seem to notice my reaction. He looked down, thought for a moment, then looked back up at me with a self-deprecating smile. "Though, you're the only one." Our eyes met for a brief second. He quickly turned to look out the window. My mind was a jumble, and I instinctively followed his gaze. It was a clear, warm afternoon. A few leaves drifted lazily down. He smiled softly, no longer the cold, distant man he was to outsiders. His voice was casual, relaxed. He said, "Nina, it's been 9 autumns. The 9th autumn since we met." I looked at his profile, and for a moment, the man before me seemed to merge with the cool, aloof boy from all those years ago. My chest felt tight, like something was struggling to break through the soil and sprout. I couldn't sleep that night. Tossing and turning for hours, I finally understood. I'd fallen for him a long time ago. It's because we've known each other for so long that I'm overthinking everything. I want to get closer to him, but I'm terrified of getting closer. I want to have him, but I'm scared of losing him even as a friend. But as I hesitated, my mind couldn't help but drift back to the image of him carrying me in his arms last night. He'd lifted me so easily. His body was warm, and I could almost feel the solid planes of his chest through his shirt. "What are you smiling about?" "Huh? Was I smiling?" Tina held a mirror up to my face. Great. My smile was stretching from ear to ear. Look at you, you're hopeless, Tina said meaningfully. If you don't make a move now, you'll regret it for the rest of your life when he ends up with someone else. Her words hit me hard. I looked at my own flushed, giddy face in the mirror and clenched my fist. I've made up my mind. I'm going to win him over. Wanna get dinner? Too direct. That new restaurant downstairs from your place looks good. Too subtle. I cordially invite you to share an evening meal. Too formal. I was still debating what to write when the chat window showed, Larry is typing. He was messaging me. In my mix of excitement and nerves, my hand slipped and I accidentally sent the half-finished message I was working on. I stared at the screen in horror. I wanna eat you. What I meant to type was, I wanna eat at that new restaurant downstairs from you, wanna go together? I scrambled to unsend the message. I hit delete instead. My hand froze. I was an idiot. Larry replied instantly. A second later, another message popped up. You've certainly got a big appetite. I wanted to bang my head against a wall. I quickly sent the message I originally intended to write, then explained that I'd sent the first one by accident. He didn't reply for a while. I slumped over a pillow, convinced I'd blown it again. Ping. It was Larry. I quickly opened the message. Larry, that sounds plausible enough. My shoulders slumped. Great, he didn't believe me. Yesterday I'd forced him to carry me and kiss me, and today I send a text like that. He must think I'm some kind of predator. Just as I was feeling miserable, another ping. Larry, come over tonight. I immediately replied okay and then spent the next hour getting ready before heading out. This time, I didn't make a mistake. I knocked on the right door. The door opened to reveal Larry on the phone. He nodded at me in acknowledgement. To my surprise, he was wearing a sharp white suit, looking very formal. Was he taking this date that seriously? I was secretly thrilled when he handed me a purse. I looked down. It was mine. I'd left it here last night. So, he just wanted me to come over to pick up my purse? Thinking about the 3 hours I'd spent getting ready, I dejectedly took the bag, my excitement gone. Thanks. You're busy, I'll get going. The door clicked shut behind me. I stiffened for a second but didn't look back. I stomped away, muttering to myself. Doesn't even let me in, doesn't even offer me a glass of water. So rude. As I was mentally cursing him out, a hand grabbed my arm. I turned around to see Larry looking at me, completely bewildered. Didn't you say you wanted to eat? I already made reservations, he said, his handsome face filled with confusion. You're not hungry anymore? Case closed, folks. He was dressed up because he'd just finished a video conference. We were having dinner because we needed to talk about work. An urgent audit project in the next city over had just kicked off, and they needed a report completed within 2 weeks. But the client knew they were asking for a lot, so the pay was extremely generous. My commission from this one job would be substantial. This just goes to show, for a single woman, her career luck is always strong. Halfway through the meal, a waitress came over with some red wine and asked if we wanted a bottle. Before I could say anything, Larry shot me a wry look and refused flatly. No thanks. She can't drink. The waitress smiled warmly. Sir, you take such good care of your date. I gave a vague ah and replied, well, it's not really because of that. The waitress smiled shyly. Oh, why not? My eyes lit up. A kindred spirit. She gets it. Unfortunately, Larry couldn't appreciate our shared understanding. He was methodically cutting his steak, asking me in a very serious tone, the timeline is tight. We'd have to head over there tonight. Are you okay with that? Of course, I agreed readily. When it came to work, I was always decisive. I'll drive you home after dinner. Pack your things and we'll go straight from there, Larry said, finishing his meal and elegantly wiping his mouth. Drive? We won't get there until midnight. It's a Saturday, it'll be hard for me to find a hotel. Under the restaurant's crystal chandeliers, Larry's face was cool and refined, but the words that came out of his mouth sent a jolt through me. Stay at my place. Auditing work involves a lot of travel, and we had many long-term clients in the neighboring city. So, Larry had just bought an apartment there. My smile didn't leave my face the entire time we were walking into the apartment. The clients' books for this project were sensitive, so they only trusted me and Larry, their long-term consultants, to handle it. Larry's logic was simple: it was dangerous for a woman to stay in a hotel alone, and since the project was on a tight deadline, we'd be working long hours. Living together would be more efficient. At the time, I'd nodded calmly, agreeing that his reasoning was sound. Inside, I was ecstatic. I was going to be living alone with him for 2 weeks. Who wouldn't be excited about that? Nina, why did you follow me in here? The man in front of me suddenly turned around. I was caught off guard and walked right into his chest. A second later, he pushed me away. I took a closer look and realized, oh, we were at the bathroom. Larry looked down at me, a half smile on his face as he asked with mock seriousness. Did I not feed you enough tonight? Feed me, he still remembered my typo. I want to eat you. So that's what that was about. I'm full, totally full, I said with a dry laugh. I thought we were still on the tour. Larry raised an eyebrow. His long fingers gripped my shoulders, and he gently spun me around. The tour was over a long time ago. His chin brushed the top of my head, and a wave of heat washed over my ear, though his voice remained as cool as jade. Miss Nina, I'm about to take a shower. Could you please leave? Could I possibly say no? I mumbled a few huss and, with my heart pounding wildly, fled his bedroom with a beet-red face. The apartment was spacious, and my bedroom had its own bathroom. After a shower filled with wild thoughts, I started texting Tina while walking to the kitchen for a glass of water. It's supposed to be me hitting on Larry, so why does it always feel like he's the one hitting on me? She replied like a seasoned pro, effortless charm is the most lethal. I thought that made a lot of sense and immediately asked her for advice. She sent me several pictures of men with six-packs, along with the message, look at more hot guys. Desensitize yourself. One picture immediately caught my eye. You couldn't see the guy's face, just his lips biting the hem of a drenched white t-shirt, revealing 8-pack abs with water trickling down them. It was pure testosterone. My eyes widened. This. Why hadn't she sent me this goldmine sooner? I looked again. The guy was fair-skinned with a cool vibe, a bit like Larry. I imagined a reserved, untouchable man like him striking a pose like that. My whole body felt like it was on fire. As I was giggling to myself, my world suddenly went black. I couldn't see a thing. At the same time, something cool and firm gripped my arm. In the silent darkness, my heart seized, and a scream tore from my throat. My mind went blank. As I screamed, I swung my fist wildly. My fist connected with a hard body. The man grunted and grabbed my hand before I could swing again. It's me. The power's out. I stammered, Larry? Yeah, I'm here. Don't be scared, Larry said, pulling me a little closer. He wrapped an arm loosely around me, his warm, dry hand gently patting my back. His familiar, steady voice was incredibly calming. The building sent out a notice. They're doing emergency pipe repairs. The power will be out for an hour. So, you were coming to tell me when the power went out? Yeah, Larry confirmed, his hand still gently patting my back. So Larry remembered I was afraid of the dark. He also remembered me telling him that patting my back had a strangely calming effect on me. My heart settled back into my chest, and I felt a little flicker of happiness. I patted my chest and took a deep breath, finally relaxing. Only then did I realize how precariously close we were standing, practically pressed against each other. Staring at the abs right in front of me, a spark ignited in my brain. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Did I hurt you? Let me rub it for you. My kind hand made a well-intentioned move toward his stomach. Just before I could make contact, that hand was also swiftly captured. In a dizzying spin, my back was against the wall, both of my hands pinned high above my head. He was extremely close, his breath warm on my skin. Nina, are you trying to rub it better, or are you up to no good? In the darkness, I could only see a vague outline of him, and all my senses were amplified. I trembled slightly, my heart racing. I tried to twist my wrists free, but he only held them tighter. Don't move, Larry commanded, leaning in closer, his cool, smooth voice now laced with a hint of huskiness. Explain yourself. I felt like I was about to combust. This position was just too embarrassing. Steeling myself, I stammered out a weak defense. Don't get the wrong idea. I was really just going to rub it. By the last two words, my voice had dwindled to a guilty whisper. Is that so? He asked, sounding intrigued. He pulled out something that was glowing. Then what's this? I instinctively looked over. On the lit-up phone screen was the picture of the six-pack abs Tina had sent. And below it was my reply. A series of animated heart eye emojis, frantically drooling, followed by OMG Tina, he looks just like my Larry. I want to get all touchy-feely with my dear Larry and do things. Help. Just bury me now, right now. I was about to squeeze my eyes shut and play dead. But then I saw it. The light from the phone screen faintly illuminated Larry's cool, stoic face. He raised an eyebrow, tilted his chin up, and looked down at me. Then he suddenly reached up and loosened his tie. LL Larry, what are you doing? I watched as he finished with his tie and undid the top two buttons of his shirt. I couldn't help but gulp, my words becoming a jumbled mess. Scared? Larry's tone was playful as he slowly turned on his phone's flashlight and set it on a nearby table. A small area around us was now illuminated. He stepped closer to me, the usually stern man now wearing a wicked grin. Isn't this what you wanted? Wanted? Wanted what? The what I was thinking of. My heart felt like it was on a thrill ride, launched to its highest peak. I chickened out. I really, truly chickened out. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my hands up to block him, my face plastered with a fawning smile as I tried to negotiate. I am not ready yet. Maybe some other time. Larry finally stopped, his body almost completely enclosing mine. He let out a low laugh. Nina, you're really... His words trailed off. He took a few steps back, admiring my flushed face with a mischievous smile. In that moment, Larry's cool features were tinged with a dangerous allure. His tie hung loosely down to his stomach, his shirt was disheveled, and I could just glimpse the muscles of his chest. I felt dizzy, my head in the clouds, the sound of my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Somehow, I ended up lying on the bed in Larry's room. Listening to the sound of the shower running in the bathroom, my face was burning. Larry's words floated through my mind. They sent a notification saying the power will be back on later than expected. You'll be scared by yourself, so sleep in my room. I'll stay with you. I was about to shower when I got the call from building management. I came to find you as soon as I got the details. You can go to sleep, don't wait up for me. I'll sleep on the couch after I finish my work. And just like that, everything was decided for me. Thinking back, it felt like he had been arranging my life like this for years. I was so used to relying on him. It was only now that I realized all those little moments had accumulated, blossoming into love. I couldn't help but wonder if his behavior tonight meant he liked me too. And that you're really, what was he going to say? Tossing and turning, one moment smiling, the next worrying, I eventually fell asleep. I dreamed about our university days. Once, we lost a debate tournament and spent hours in a small conference room dissecting what went wrong. By the time we got out, it was past 11, and all the dining halls were closed. I was starving, so I decided to grab something from the food stalls outside the west gate. There were only a few stalls left open, and the street was dimly lit. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a man emerge from a side alley, staring at me intently. A gut feeling warned me that something was wrong. I walked as fast as I could to the nearest stall and, trying to act calm, said to the owner, "An order of fried dumplings, please," while quickly dialing Larry's number. He picked up almost immediately. I suppressed my trembling and put on a show. "Babe, I'm at the food stalls by the west gate. Weren't you coming to pick me up? You can be here in 2 minutes, right?" Larry was there in less than 30 seconds. He'd run. He stood beside me, out of breath, and grabbed my wrist, finally letting out a sigh of relief. By then, I was so scared I was frozen stiff. My hands instinctively clung to his arm as I tried to keep my voice steady. Let's go." As I spoke, I glanced over and saw that the man was still there. My heart leaped back into my throat, and I pressed myself even closer to Larry. Larry noticed. He wrapped his right arm around me, pulling me into his embrace. With his left hand, he took the dumplings from the vendor and shot a fierce glare at the man. But when he spoke to me, his voice was gentle. "Okay, let's go back." Once we were back on campus, the danger finally passed, and I couldn't hold back my tears. "Larry, can you pat my back?" I sobbed, looking up at him with pleading eyes. "Okay," he said, looking down at me in his arms, his voice soft. Then I felt a gentle, warm pressure on my back, patting rhythmically, calming my heart. I wiped my tears and told him how when I was little, I was afraid of the dark, and my grandma would pat my back to soothe me to sleep. Ever since, whenever I was scared, a few pats on the back would make me feel much better. Thinking of my grandma helped me find my courage. He listened quietly, murmuring in response from time to time, and finally walked me back to my dorm. After that, he always had dinner with me after our debate tournaments. When I woke up, I saw a light rain falling outside the window. I checked my phone. 6 in the morning. Great, I could sleep for another hour. I glanced at the couch. Larry wasn't there. Just as I was about to get up and look for him, I heard his voice from outside the door, tinged with a smile. "Mom, I really do have a girlfriend, you don't need to worry about it anymore. Yes, it's the one you've all seen. Bring her home for dinner before the end of the year? I need to ask her." "Okay, I'm hanging up." For a moment, it felt like the space around me had stretched, his voice seeming to come from another dimension. Something felt wrong with me, too. My brain was working in slow motion. Did he just say he has a girlfriend? Another voice in my head, rational, cruel, and cold, answered me, "Yes, he has a girlfriend. His family has even seen her. It's not you. Face reality. You're too late." I was too late. The word struck me like a hammer, shattering the fluttering heart I'd had last night into a million pieces. I wanted to go out and ask him. When did he get a girlfriend? Why didn't he tell me? Why did he treat me like that last night? But as I heard his footsteps approaching, I instinctively burrowed deeper into the covers. I was about to burst into tears, and I didn't want him to see. The footsteps stopped beside me. The blanket was gently lifted, then tucked softly under my neck. A lump formed in my throat. I quickly pretended to turn over in my sleep, facing away from him. I fought back the sting in my eyes and cursed him silently in my head. "Larry, you have no morals. You've betrayed your girlfriend, and you've betrayed me. I'm going to make you pay." An hour later, I was fully dressed and ready to go. A chic, black, waist-cinching dress, a face of flawless makeup, and a bold, attention-grabbing red lipstick. A woman can be heartbroken, but she must never look defeated. If you fall for one man, get back up on another. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Anyway, right now, I was beautiful, poised, and confident. I saw a flash of admiration in Larry's eyes. He was also in a black suit today, the sleek, tailored lines making him look even paler and cooler, like a priceless piece of white jade on black velvet. I secretly rolled my eyes. Just a pretty face. When we arrived at the client's office, we were greeted by Miss Chung, an old acquaintance. A young newcomer named Sue was with her. Miss Chung was efficient. A full year's worth of ledgers was stacked neatly on the conference table. She gave Sue a few instructions and left. Throughout the morning, Sue's fair face was flushed, her eyes constantly drifting toward Larry. At lunchtime, she led us to the cafeteria. After some light-hearted chat, she ventured a question. "Mr. Song, you're so handsome and successful. You must have a girlfriend, right?" Before Larry could even open his mouth, I took 2 quick steps in my heels and stood in front of him. "Sue, you've got a sharp eye. He does have a girlfriend." "You're welcome, kid. I just saved you." Larry shot me a surprised look, a rare smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. His voice was gentle, and maybe even a little shy. "Yes," he said with a nod, the corners of his lips turning up, his happiness obvious. "I have a girlfriend." "What are you smiling about?" "So you're in a relationship?" "Big deal." I was practically drowning in bitterness. Sue's expression dimmed for a moment, but she quickly perked up and offered some charming words of congratulations. Larry's smile only grew wider, and he replied earnestly, "Thank you. I'll take that as a blessing. I'm sure we'll last a long time." The words were like a dagger in my heart. I couldn't listen anymore. I hurried ahead, ready to become a ruthless, emotionless eating machine. In the days that followed, I fended off countless girls with budding crushes on him. But the more I did it, the happier he seemed, which annoyed me so much I just stopped talking about it. To be honest, I'd wanted to ask him about it a million times, but I was too proud. My heart was fragile and slow to trust, I couldn't just lay it bare for him. In the end, I gave up and just kept my distance. Of course, work was completely crushing my youthful spirit, so I didn't have much time to overthink things anyway. I was pulling all-nighters, working myself to the bone. Most of my time was spent on the job, the rest sleeping. Finally, I finished the first draft of the report. I rubbed my shoulders and sent the document and all its attachments to Larry, feeling a huge weight lift off me. The tap-tap-tap of a keyboard to my right stopped. Larry, wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and draped in a soft white blanket, handed me a glass of warm water. "Great. I ordered us some late-night food, it's almost here. You eat and then go to bed. I'll take care of the rest." Under the warm light, a slightly weary Larry was very close to me, so close it felt like if I just reached out, I could become a part of his future. My eyes suddenly started to sting. If I had realized my feelings sooner, if I had tried to get closer to him earlier, would. Knock, knock, knock. "Delivery's here." I snapped back to reality, quickly looking down and getting up to grab the food. The 2-week business trip was over. The first thing I did was submit a request for 7 days of vacation. I desperately needed a break to breathe and recalibrate. Larry approved it quickly, telling me to get some much-needed rest. I didn't reply. I gave Tina the latest update and told her I didn't want to talk about Larry anymore. I holed up at home, watching movies, playing video games, painting, and doing workout videos. Basically, I did anything and everything I could to distract myself from thinking about Larry. He didn't message me at all during that time. My life went on as usual. Aside from the bouquet of daisies on my table that was slowly wilting, everything was fine. On the last day of my vacation, Tina sent me a barrage of messages. She said she'd met a total creep on a blind date, a guy so oily she couldn't stand to be in the same room with him, and I needed to get over there and rescue her immediately. I instantly went into protective bestie mode, grabbing my bag and rushing out the door. When I got to the restaurant, the hostess led me to table B26. There was only one handsome guy sitting there, who stood up politely when he saw me, a warm smile on his face. "Miss Nina, hello. My name is Luke. You know me?" I asked, confused. He faltered for a second, then seemed to understand. He pulled out a chair for me, his smile incredibly pleasant. "Have a seat." He was so nice that I didn't want to be rude. After 5 minutes of listening, I understood everything. Tina had lied to me. There was no creep. The whole thing was a setup to introduce me to Luke. Luke had an easygoing personality and a witty sense of humor. The food arrived just in time, and he gracefully let me off the hook. "Miss Nina, don't feel any pressure. Think of it as just making a new friend." He shrugged, and I relaxed and smiled, and we started chatting as we ate. By the end of the meal, Luke was smiling broadly. He said to me with refreshing frankness, "I really like you, Miss Nina. I hope you'll consider me and give me a chance to get a second dinner." I wasn't interested in Luke, but I admired his straightforward personality. I was about to let him down easy when a cold, indifferent voice came from behind me. "There won't be a next time." I jumped. That voice, it sounded so much like Larry's. I turned my head. It really was him. And he looked furious. The next second, my chair was pulled back. I looked at him, annoyed. "Larry, what do you think you're doing?" "Taking you away from here," Larry said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. This was ridiculous. What was Larry playing at? I pulled my chair back and turned away from him. "I'm not going." Luke looked awkward and confused. "Miss Nina, who is this?" I was fuming. "My meddling beau, ah." The word boss was swallowed by a gasp as my chair was suddenly yanked back again. The tall figure next to me leaned down, scooped me up into his arms without any room for protest, and finished my sentence with a possessive, steely tone, as if to make a point to Luke. "Her husband." "What did you just say?" I struggled to get down. Thinking about how Larry had just carried me through the restaurant, making me the center of attention, I wanted to peel my face off and get a new one. Larry's body tensed at my words. After he put me down, he opened his apartment door, pulled me inside, and pinned me against it. "Nina, I don't like you having dinner with other men." The smell of alcohol on his breath hit me, stronger than it had been at the restaurant. Was he there on business and just happened to run into me? I pushed him back a little, saying angrily, "That's my business. I'll have dinner with whoever I want." "Why? Don't you like me?" He looked dejected, his eyes clouded as he asked, "Don't you like me anymore?" He had the nerve to ask that. My face turned to ice. "No." Larry stared down at me for a long time, his eyes churning with an emotion I couldn't read. Suddenly, as if he'd made up his mind, he started unbuttoning his shirt without a word. I panicked. What are you doing?" Larry tossed his shirt to the floor, his cool, stoic face dead serious. "Seducing you." He was, definitely succeeding. My eyes were glued to the gorgeous sight, unable to look away, but my mouth was still running. "I'm not falling for that." You put your clothes back on." Larry's large hand took mine, his deep, magnetic voice a seductive whisper. "Want to touch?" I could practically feel the drool forming at the corners of my mouth. I watched as my traitorous hand reached for his 8-pack, but he stopped me just before I made contact. The man stared at me intently. "If you touch me, you have to take responsibility." My mind snapped back to reality. I glared at him. "Larry, you have a girlfriend. Why are you still messing with me?" My sudden outburst seemed to startle him. He looked lost, confused. "My girlfriend, isn't that you?" My brain shut down. It tried to reboot twice and failed. "Wait a second. Allow me to remind you," I said. "Mr. Song, we were never together." At my words, a look of disappointment and hurt filled his eyes. "You really have changed your mind. You don't want me anymore." Oh, God. This scene, why did it feel a little too familiar? I was right. Larry was drunk. After a long time of him being a mess, he finally fell asleep. Remembering the time I drunkenly pounded on his door and yelled at him, I couldn't help but feel a sense of karma's a bitch. But thinking back on our conversation, where we were clearly talking past each other, I felt something was very wrong. There seemed to be a major information gap between us. When he sobers up, I'm definitely going to have a serious talk with him. After I left his apartment, I tossed and turned all night, plagued by chaotic dreams. I was woken up at 6 by a phone call. It was my colleague, and she sounded frantic. She said they found a mistake in a project proposal last night. They had just finished correcting it and printing it out, but they needed the company seal and the legal representative's signature. The bidding deadline was at 10, but they couldn't get a hold of Larry. I told her not to worry and that I would go find him right away. I rushed over to Larry's place. Just as I pulled out the spare key he gave me and opened the door, I got a text from my colleague saying that Larry had just replied and was on his way to the office. I breathed a sigh of relief. As I was about to leave, I came face to face with Larry walking out of his bedroom. He looked like he'd just gotten out of the shower. He was wearing nothing but a towel wrapped around his waist, his hair was dripping wet, and water droplets trickled down his shoulders and over his abs. We both froze. The memory of our intimate moments from last night flashed in my mind, and I suddenly found it hard to look at him. Sorry to bother you, I said, turning to flee. I heard hurried footsteps behind me. A pair of strong arms wrapped around me, and the warm, damp air made my heart pound erratically. Larry's voice was full of resignation. Nina, don't run. Let me go, I commanded, with absolutely no authority. No. Not now, not ever, Larry said, his voice gentle but firm. Nina, there's been a misunderstanding. It's only ever been you, he said, bending down and resting his head on my shoulder, his voice a soft, coaxing murmur. Let me explain everything after I'm done with work, okay? I could feel his strong heartbeat against me, thumping in sync with my own. I surrendered. Okay. He walked me home and then left for work. I waited anxiously, frantically texting Tina and quickly bringing her up to speed. After hearing everything, Tina responded with dozens of exclamation points and a single sentence. Go change into a matching lingerie set right now. Whoa, what are you thinking? I typed, my face burning as I sent a flurry of back-off emojis. Tina sent back a series of attack emojis, followed by a frantic voice message. Hurry up, put it on. We have to be prepared women, you get me? I fell silent. Larry wasn't that kind of person, was he? After a moment of thought, I silently pulled out my nicest set. Then I took a bath, did my body care routine, washed my hair, did my hair care routine, cleansed my face, did my facial care routine. Yeah, you have to be prepared. 9 o'clock at night. I finally got the call from Larry, followed by a rapid ringing of my doorbell. I practically leaped off the couch to get the door. I paused just before I reached it, took a deep breath, smoothed my hair, and then opened it. The scent of flowers and Larry's cool, fresh scent rushed in to greet me. I took the huge bouquet of red roses, murmuring a shy, demure thank you. Once his hands were free, Larry moved to hug me. I pushed him away. That'll cost you extra, I said sternly. Explain yourself first. He sighed helplessly, pulled me over to the couch, and for the next half hour, he told me everything. When he was done, I let out a long sigh. That idiot. The night I got drunk and pounded on his door, he realized I liked him and immediately called his older sister to ask for advice on what to do. I couldn't help but interject here. You could have just given in to me, you know. He sighed, a deep melancholy in his eyes. Nina, I can't even remember when I started to like you. You've been by my side for so long. You're in every single one of my plans for the rest of my life. Because of that, I was terrified of losing you. I was scared it was all just a drunken joke. As he said this, his eyes were soft and bright, like the most beautiful stars I'd ever seen. I was suddenly speechless, my heart melting like water, wanting only to hear more. He said his sister had asked him if the girl was Nina. He'd been too embarrassed to admit it, so he said no. His sister then deliberately gave him some bad advice, telling him he had to play it cool and make the girl chase him for a while, otherwise he'd seem cheap and she wouldn't cherish him once she got him. He gave a bitter smile, explaining that when he confronted his sister last night, he found out she'd known he liked me all along. She thought he was just going to settle for some admirer to appease their parents and was worried he'd be stringing some poor girl along, so she decided to mess with her own brother. My eyes widened slightly. But I'd never met his sister. How did she know about me? And how did she know he liked me? He seemed to know what I was thinking. He looked a little embarrassed, but under my expectant gaze, he sighed and confessed. I'm not a very talkative person. I rarely talked about school, but over the years, the person I mentioned most was you. There's a picture hanging in my room, a group photo of us on stage after we won our first championship together. His voice was pleasant as he recounted all the little clues I had missed. It slowly dawned on me, so the person his family had all seen was me, in the photograph in his room? This was a massive screw-up. Then why didn't you try to talk to me when I was giving you the cold shoulder after our misunderstanding? I demanded. He went quiet, unwilling to say. I started to pester him, poking his cheek and threatening to ignore him if he didn't tell me. He suddenly pulled me into his arms. Let me hold you while I tell you. I nodded, nestled in his embrace. Only then did he speak, still sounding a little sheepish. I thought my sister was right. Because I couldn't control myself and almost let you have me, you lost interest. So, I decided to play it cool. This man. He really was an idiot. I couldn't help but giggle. And that wasn't a date. My best friend saw how hurt I was by you and tricked me into going on a blind date. Okay. My fault, Larry said, ruffling my hair, looking like he was at a complete loss with me. So, Miss Nina, he said, looking down at me, his eyes full of hope. Will you be with me? Yes. I hugged him tightly, overflowing with happiness. You're mine now. He replied with a smile, his eyes holding a galaxy of stars. You can touch the abs whenever you want. I looked up excitedly, my hands ready to pounce, but he stopped me as if remembering something. His tone was tempting. But first, let me hear you say it. The words made no sense, but somehow, I knew exactly what he meant. Larry, darling? He hummed, nuzzling his chin against the top of my head, purring like a contented cat. Say it again. I couldn't stop smiling. I'll say it 100 times. No matter how many times. He leaned down and kissed me. I will always answer you.